All right. Hey, everybody. This is Luke Humphrey with the Luke Humphrey Running Podcast channel. So, the rumor is that Berlin is going to be pretty warm. So, what I want to talk to you about is how we approach that, right? So, um, if you are on my website and you go to calculators, you will come up to this screen and then you click training pace calculator. So you can adjust, you can kind of see where you're at, right? And so let's say marathon, I want to run 3 hours and 30 minutes. And then we can check and see. So let's say we know what the temperature is going to be. So let's say I had an athlete tell me it was going to be 70 degrees at the start of their time. If you don't know the humidity, yeah, just put something in there, but you can find out. Yeah, it's pretty easy to find out what the humidity is because we don't just do by temperature. You're doing off of what's called the wet bulb globe temperature, which is a little more accurate because humidity is going to play as much a role as the heat itself. So we can then kind of calculate it what we would be able to run. And so, you know, this top line here would be, ideal situation where we're basically running 8-minute miles, or if we're doing kilometers, just under 5 minutes a kilometer. So adjusted based on the information that I put in the calculator, we are now looking at 336 to 340. So, roughly 815 to 825 pace, or, 506 to 512 per kilometer. And so, it's going to affect you. The nice thing is that, how I would approach this is that it's going to be a situation where most of my athletes have really been training through pretty warm weather. So 70s, 80s, approaching 90 for some people. So they've got a good idea of what they're capable of. Using this calculator, that should be more confirmation than anything. Like, hey, listen, my tempo runs have gone. This is what I've done, right? I've been able to average, 8:15 pace on my tempo runs, and I can look at my heart rate data, and that seems to be okay. Keep increasing as the tempo is going on, staying relatively steady. Um, so hopefully, it just gives you an idea of what you're capable of doing on that day. So, the frustrating part is that, a lot of you are going to Berlin to run fast. Some of you are, just going to Berlin to check a box, hit those majors. And, like one of my athletes there is, I think, they want to perform well, but they also went out there, about a week and a half ago, and, they were doing more, tourist activities. But so, we had that conversation where like, okay, what are my priorities? And so, they're going to scale it back really starting tomorrow, which would be Wednesday, and then really kind of lock in for the marathon stuff. But it still takes its toll, right? So, but my point is, you have to kind of figure out, what's the purpose there. So, but ideally, you've been training through the summer, so this is a lot different situation than say, even running like an October marathon, like a Chicago or a New York or something like that, where you've probably had a good 6 to 8 weeks of cooler mornings or cooler evenings, and been able to really lock in on some paces where we're talking about something at the end of September. So like where I'm from, we've had some cooler mornings, but it's still getting up into the mid 80s during the day. And so it's not like we've really escaped the warm weather where you kind of would deacclimate from some of that heat training that you've had all over the summer. So the effect of it, it's going to have an effect, but just know that it might not be as much as, like a London or a Boston where you've trained all winter in cool weather, and then all of a sudden you get a warm day on race day. And that's going to have a much more profound impact on you than this time around where you've been training all summer. You're going into basically the end of summer and are going to still be running a race. So now, if your goal was to run really fast or you had a specific time goal, you might have to adjust from that. And how I would use that is like, okay, so if my tempo run suggests like I'm really kind of been hitting, maybe in that 336 to 340 range, I would still probably start out fairly conservative. I would probably start out on the slower end of that range and see if you can kind of move up. But the chances are it's only going to get warmer throughout the day. So maybe you just play it safe and just be in the middle of that and just kind of see where it takes you and kind of really kind of manage the decline. Uh, whereas like if you still go out after, oh, so it's only going to be 69 degrees and I've been hitting my tempo runs, and you go out still at your goal marathon pace, but then, as it gets warmer, how much is that heat going to impact you as you get into the race, as you get 1 hour, 2 hour into 3 hours into that race? It's gradually going to get warmer, so it's probably going to have a bigger and bigger impact on you. So that's the way you have to kind of approach is, do I want to go and kind of put some time in the bank and hope for the best? But my advice, you're probably going to slow down, but so let's manage how much you slow down, right? So I would probably say, okay, if my range, I have about a 5-minute range here, 4-minute range. Um, let's kind of keep that on the middle and see if I can just stay within that range that I would slow down, right? So if my range is saying, okay, I've been training for 8-minute pace, it's saying I'm probably going to be capable of running 8:15 to 8:25 pace. Maybe we just kind of stay around 8:20 pace and just see where it takes us, right? And see if get really good at, just be really good at our fueling and hydration. Both are going to have much more of an impact on you on the warm weather. Just because even running at a slower pace, the intensity is going to probably be a little bit higher. It's just going to, obviously you're going to sweat more, and you're going to be burning through the carbohydrates a little bit faster. So we have to make sure that we're doing that. Now, I don't know if I would just take a lot more gels, especially if I haven't practiced with that, but I think, hopefully on the course you can have access to the fluids and stuff that you need to have a little bit more carbohydrate in them. Or you're just planning on taking more fluids, even if it's just a little bit of carbohydrate each fluid station. Maximize what you can take in during each aid station, and just really focus on staying as hydrated as you can, minimizing the loss of fluids. You're going to lose fluids, but let's minimize that. Let's try to keep that in that 2 to 3% fluid loss, which means you're going to have to drink, a fairly significant amount every aid station. If they have an aid station every few K, you got to be hitting them, and you got to hit them early, right? Even if you don't feel like you want it early, hit it early and maximize what you can get out of there. So ultimately it's probably going to be a thing where, okay, you're pretty well heat acclimated. However, we've got to be in a position where we can be smart about it and manage how much we're slowing down, right? So keep that in mind as you go into Berlin. And just know that you're probably better off a little bit just because you've trained through the heat all summer, but it's still going to have a little bit of effect on you. So think about that over the next few days, how you want to approach that and much you need to adjust, right? So most of you have probably trained in significantly warmer weather than that, but it's still going to take its toll. And that's what we have to go. And my advice would be more on the conservative side. You can always pick it up, but once you start slowing down, it's more of a can you manage how much you slow down? And that's what you really have to decide over the next few days, how much you want to risk it and how much you want to play it a little bit safe, right? So ultimately, the goal is to have the best race possible, manage expectations, and hopefully, if you're going there for a Boston qualifier, it might not be the best opportunity, but you can still have a great race and have a good experience, and that's ultimately what you might have to decide on. So hopefully that helps you. If this was of value to you, give me a like and maybe a subscribe too, right? So I'm trying to grow this YouTube channel out, and best of luck at everybody running Berlin. Hope you have a great race. Hopefully this video helps you now, and then you don't even need it on race day because it's cool. So we'll see how it goes. All right, I'll talk to you later. Take care.